Hi there, I'm Heidi Villegas with Healing Harvest Homestead, and we're going to talk herbs today. I want to encourage you to stay on through the whole video because as I go through this herbal tea blend that's meant for mental health and wellness support during these winter months because of seasonal affective disorder, I talk about the herbs and I teach you why they work and what's beneficial about them. I'm not just tossing a blend together. You want to go ahead and be sure that you listen to all the herbal information. It's really helpful to know. And I do talk about safety as well. All right, so let's get into the herbal tea recipe. This is my happiness recipe. Enjoy. Today we're going to go ahead and talk about some herbs that I have lined up here that support the mood. And the reason I'm doing that right now is because it's fall and we're getting ready to go into the dark months, okay, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. And during these darker months, some of us experience something known as seasonal affective disorder, or some people just call it SAD. And that's basically what you are. You're a little sadder. And this is not a medical diagnosis or anything like that. It's actually a seasonal issue. And you can do some things to help yourself with seasonal affective disorder. So if you're a person who gets glum or sad or down in the wintertime, it might be because you're not getting enough sunshine. That's probably one of the biggest things, and you can take vitamin D and things like that to help it. But I want to share this herbal tea with you today and talk a little bit about the herbs in the tea. And you can easily make this yourself, and it's delicious. I love to drink this tea in the wintertime, and I'm going to be starting that right now, even though we're just barely getting into the fall months, because it's just helpful. Okay, so first off, we have St. John's wort. St. John's wort, or Hypericum perforatum, is an herb that grows abundantly here up in North Idaho. In fact, I suspect it grows here because there are a lot of people who live on the north sides of mountains and they need a little help. But anyway, St. John's wort became very well known back in the 1990s, for being the anti-depression drug, or the anti-depression herb, I'm sorry. And it doesn't really work like that. If a lot of people who come into herbalism who are brand new love to come in with that pill mentality, is what I call it, and they want to know what herb is good for this, that, or the other. And herbalism doesn't exactly work that way. But with that said, St. John's wort has some properties that do support brain health and the nervous system as a whole, and can really be helpful with certain kinds of mood disorders and things like that, especially just your basic sadness. So I love St. John's wort for this. Now, safety factors. Let's talk about safety factors with this herb. St. John's wort has well over 50 known herb-drug interactions. And what that means is that if you're on pharmaceutical or prescription medications, St. John's wort might interact with the drug. And that means it can either suppress its action or potentiate it or make it more powerful, and that can be dangerous. Always do your own research before you start using herbs and essential oils too, because sometimes there might be an interaction that's negative and you don't want to deal with that. So let's move on here. So I'm going to go ahead and put 3 parts of St. John's wort herb into my tea mixing bowl. I love this bowl. Now let's talk about parts really fast. A part can be anything you want. It's basically measuring out your herbs in a ratio form. So if I want just a little bit of tea blend, I might use teaspoons. If I want a big, huge batch because I might be selling it or giving it away, I might use cups. In this case, my part is 1/8 of a cup. So I'm gonna scoop out 3 parts of St. John's wort using my special spoon. All right, there's the St. John's wort. Beautiful. Now let's go ahead and talk about rose petals for a moment. So here I've got some organic rose petals, and I want you to know, if you are going to be using rose petals internally and you're purchasing them, please buy organic. That's really important because roses are one of the most heavily sprayed crops in the whole entire world. That even goes if you're buying the essential oil. Be sure you're getting organic. So that's just a little tip on roses. But why are we adding roses to this mixture today? So roses are, first of all, they're beautiful. They make every single herbal tea look just so pretty. And part of the pleasure of drinking an herbal tea is the beauty of it, the beautiful plants that work together. And I'll be showing you what this blend looks like in a minute. It's gorgeous. But roses have an affinity for the heart. And as we know, the heart is the seat of many of our emotions. If you're going through grief, if you're going through sadness, if you're going through some down times, rose petal tea can actually be really good for you. It's also a nice digestive. So I'm adding rose petals for a number of reasons. One is for their beauty, and two is because they're so excellent for the emotional heart. The recipe that I created calls for 2 parts of rose petals, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and add another scoop because I just love them so much, and they smell so good. Oh my goodness. I love the smell of roses. And by the way, when you're smelling an herb and you can smell its scent, what you're smelling is the volatile oil. So really that's the essential oil that it contains, and it's just gorgeous. It's like getting a hug. That's what roses reminds me of. Okay, next up, 2 parts of oat straw. And what I have here is, these are actually the milky oat tops, which I prefer to the oat straw, but sometimes they're not available, the oat tops. And here's the difference. The milky oat tops contain a substance that supports the nervous system. It's a really mild, gentle, nerving herb. It's gently supportive of your entire nervous system, and so therefore it works really well with the St. John's wort and the roses for emotional support. It's also full of nutrition. I love this plant. We are going to go ahead and add 2 parts, and I actually might even add 3 parts here too. Nice. They're slippery little guys. Here, I'll show you what they look like. Yeah, these are just the oat tops from the, oops. These are just the very tops of the oats as they begin getting ripe, and they contain that milky substance. Really nice. All right, those are our milky oats. By the way, if you use oat straw instead of the milky oat tops, you're going to get a lot of nutrition in that too. You're not going to get as much of the nerving benefits as the oat tops have. You'll still get some, but it's really great for nutrition, and that's always good in an herbal tea. I want to just mention, like, when you are steeping your teas or deciding what kind of a preparation you want to make, you need to know what is going to be extracted in your substance. In this case, it's going to be water, because we're making an herbal tea blend, and water extracts your minerals really beautifully. So that's nice to know. And all right, moving on. Next up, I've got cinnamon. I've got the cinnamon in there because cinnamon is another emotionally supportive plant. It usually brings back wonderful memories of childhood and baking and things like that. It's also mucilaginous, which means that it is very helpful for your mucous membranes. And in the fall, if you are outside or even inside with the heater going with a lot of dry air, usually your sinus cavity will start drying out, and that can cause some issues. So drinking herbal teas that have herbs that contain mucilage, which is a slimy substance, can be really helpful too. Cinnamon is in here for that reason, as well as for the fact that I love the flavor and the taste. It also helps balance glucose levels in the blood. So that's another little helpful benefit. Next up is hawthorn, and this is the leaves and the flowers. So this was harvested in the springtime of the year. You can also harvest hawthorn berries in the fall, and I do that every year, and I tincture those. I'm not sure if I did a video on that or not, but if I did, I'll put a link to it up here. Anyway, hawthorn leaf and flowers are really helpful, again, to support the heart, and they're amazing. They're not quite as strong as the berries, but they are beautiful in an herbal tea. And I'm going to add 1 part. Actually, I'm going to add 1.5 parts. I'm really messing up my recipe, but I really like what some of these herbs do, and hawthorn is one of them. Okay, next up is peppermint. And I've got the peppermint in there just for the extra energy boost, and also it helps with the brain. It helps with some cognition. It's also got extra nutrition, and it tastes really good. 1 part of peppermint. A little note about peppermint. If you are making herbal tea blends using peppermint, peppermint tends to get very bitter when it's steeped very long. So just be aware of that when you're mixing up your blends. I do have a video on how to formulate an herbal tea blend. I'll link to that up here too. It's one of my older videos. I probably should redo it. And I made it back when I'm not a great video person anyway, but I made it back when I was really not good. I was just starting out, but it's an excellent video in terms of the information. And I will teach you in that video how to formulate and how to think about putting these herbs together. All right, next up, we've got dandelion leaf. Dandelion leaf is in here because it's really helpful for the kidneys. And in the winter time, many times we don't drink enough water. And whenever you are working with herbs that are helpful for kidney support, I like to add them in, and it helps you get a little thirsty, so you drink more fluid. So I really like dandelion leaf, and dandelion leaf is full of nutrition too. Lots of minerals and things like that in dandelion. Okay, so next up is Eleuthero. And this is the root, and it's very finely shaved, so very small bits. That's why it's going to work in this blend that's mainly leaves. But I really love Eleuthero, and I could put a couple of extra scoops, but I'm not going to right now. I need to get some more Eleuthero actually. But Eleuthero is an adaptogen herb, and an adaptogen is basically an herb that gets into your body and it goes to work to balance certain systems or areas. And some adaptogens are an overall adaptogen. Some adaptogens, I don't know, Eleuthero, for example, is really helpful for energy levels and supporting stamina, especially if you're under chronic stress. So I really like it when I'm making tea blends that support emotional health too. And another herb you could consider putting in here that I'm not right now is ashwagandha, because ashwagandha as another adaptogen herb is really helpful for supporting the brain health. And anytime you are supporting your brain, you're supporting your nervous system in that capacity, cognition, memory. And there have been lots and lots of clinical studies about the fact that when people are suffering from different conditions, it does affect mental health too. Eleuthero is really helpful for that. Finally, this is the last herb, and this is such a sunshiny, wonderful herb. This is orange peel. Look how beautiful and bright and orange it is. And it smells so good. I just love this. So 1 part of orange peel is going in here, and I'm actually gonna put 2 in. This batch of orange peel has so much flavor, it's gorgeous. So you can see, if I were to leave the peppermint out, it would be just fine. But with the orange and the cinnamon, you can really flavor things up too. And if you wanted to even turn this into more of a fall drink, you could leave out the peppermint and put in some clove. So those are some ways that you can work with this tea. And now I'm just going to mix it up. Oh, this is gorgeous. This is just absolutely gorgeous. All right. And I'm going to actually bring it around and put it in the camera so you can see this. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I know the lighting here in my studio office isn't giving it justice, so I'll try to take a photograph and insert it so you can just see how gorgeous it is. I've been making this tea. I formulated this tea about 10 years ago, actually, and I've been making it every year ever since, and I just really love it. It's a beautiful tea. It's really a good one to give as gifts. Just be sure you explain the contraindications of St. John's wort to who you're giving it to, or ask them some questions, and if they're on any medications, I just would not give it to them at all. And now let's talk about how to make your herbal tea. So let me go ahead and move some of these jars out of the way and put my tea blend right here. To store this, you're going to put it into a glass jar with a tight-fitting lid and just store it like you do your other herbs in a dark, cool spot. You don't want light hitting it or things like that. So here I have a little coffee mug, one of my favorites. I love pottery, so there's something about drinking out of a nice pottery cup that's really helpful. And here I've got an infuser. You can buy these at a lot of different places. I know Star West Botanicals has them. We're soon going to have them on our shop to sell. But you just put a couple of teaspoons in. So I'll go ahead and just fill this about a quarter, three quarters of the way full usually. It's a nice large infuser. So about that full, you can see. And then what I love about this infuser is that it's got a really wide lip and it will sit right on top of a cup like this. And then what you do is you pour in your hot water. So just boiled hot water, pour it slowly in, and let it really soak into those herbs. And you want the water to hit the bottom of the infuser and actually submerge the herbs. So that's one thing to know. So if you don't want a huge cup of tea, you might want to get a smaller cup because you are using you're going to be filling the cup up. And then what you need to do is this is just a mason jar lid, put it on top of that infuser so that it's covering up the herbs. And the reason you do this is because you want to keep the volatile oils from escaping, and they're good for you. So you want them in there. And now you're just going to steep for as long as you want. If you want a really super strong medicinal tea, then you could steep this for 30, 40 minutes, even an hour. But I can tell you right now that with the peppermint and even the orange peel, you might get a little bitter tea, or you can just steep it for a short time, like 15 or 20 minutes. What I usually do, because I just love really strong teas, is I'll make a cup of tea like this and I'll sit it on my desk while I'm working, and I will take sips out of it throughout the day. And often I will just leave the infuser in it. When you're ready to drink your tea, you can get a little bowl, or just, this won't drain real well, but a little bowl is helpful. And just take out your infuser, let your tea strain off, and then set it down. And you can actually use it a couple of times if you want, but it's not going to be as strong. I always get asked that question, so I'm answering it here. All right, I'm Heidi Villegas with Healing Harvest Homestead. I hope you enjoyed this video on my Happiness Herbal Tea. Just lovely. I want to invite you to grab my free herbal remedy guide. I'll put it in the top comment below. I'll also put it in the description. This is my latest present for you. This is my 5 favorite herbal remedies for animals. And these remedies that are in this are broad-based, and I've given you suggestions for different kinds of animals. So this is a nice little one to pick up too. I think this would be good for your home apothecary and your kitchen, and if you've got pets and animals, things like that. It's a helpful one. All right, and one more thing I want to mention. It's fall after all. If you want to get my favorite fall blends, these are diffuser blends using essential oils that you can just have dispersing throughout your home or your office and really enjoying. Okay, that's it for today. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.